All right. Welcome to Science Tellers, everyone. A few things before we get started. First of all, my name is Dominique. I'm going to be your host today. Thank you so much, Livonia Civic Center Library, for having us today. A couple of things. Number one, right now you guys are muted, and you guys will be muted for the whole show up until the very end, where you guys will be able to ask questions and things like that, so that if we get people to come in, there's no disruption for the video. We all get an awesome experience and get to see all the experiments. Number two, you can choose to have your camera on or off. If you want to see your friends and you want your friends to see you, go ahead and leave it on. Otherwise, you can keep it off. That's okay too. Number three, during the show, there will be multiple moments where we will be taking polls to make our scientific guesses or hypotheses. So when that happens, I'll give you a little warning. It'll pop up on your screen, and you'll be able to make your scientific guess before our scientist does the experiments. So finally, number four, at the very end of the show, I will be doing a science experiment live for you guys to see that you guys will be able to do right at home after the show. So if that sounds awesome, give me a thumbs up, either on your camera or your little reactions at the bottom we talked about earlier. All right, awesome. I'm seeing so many thumbs up. All right, so without further ado, thank you guys for being here today, and please enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Ricky, and I'm a science teller. A science teller is part scientist, part story teller. That's right. When you mix them together, you get a science teller. And that's someone who uses really cool experiments to tell an amazing story. That's right. You guys are getting good at this. Today's story is called Dragons, Return of the Ice Sorceress. Let's get started. A long time ago, there was a kingdom. In this kingdom, there was a castle. In this castle, there were two kids. Their names were Henry and Beth. Henry and Beth, however, were not supposed to be in the castle. But one of their favorite things to do was to sneak into places where they shouldn't be. Suddenly, they heard voices. Someone was coming. They started to run. They ran down the hall and wham! Crashed into someone. They looked up thinking that it might be the castle guard, but they were wrong. It wasn't the castle guard at all. It was the last person they wanted to run into.
Freeze! What are you doing in my castle? You two are in big trouble. Now come with me.
Before the king could grab them, Henry and Beth ran, pushing past the king, ran down another long hall, and ran outside. Woo! That was a close call. Henry and Beth started running back to the village. They were almost home when suddenly, look out! They dove to the ground just in time as something flew through the air right over their heads and disappeared into the forest.
Wait a minute!
In this story, Henry and Beth saw something flying above their heads. Would you like to see what it looked like? Right here, I have a cooler. Inside this cooler, I have... Whoa! Woo! Something cold. It's so cold, I have to wear these gloves in order to touch it. In this cooler, I have... dry ice. Now, is dry ice hot or cold? It's cold. It's so cold, it's 109 degrees below zero. And that's why I have to wear these gloves in order to touch it. Everyone, stick out your hand. Close your eyes. Imagine you're holding an ice cube. What starts happening to that ice cube? It's
Melting.
melting, that's right. That means it's turning from a solid into a liquid. Okay, everyone, open your eyes. Does dry ice melt?
No.
Does it turn wet like an ice cube?
No.
That's why it's called dry ice. Now, when you heat up dry ice, it turns from a solid, not into a liquid, but into a gas. Now, what's it called when something turns from a solid into a gas? Evaporation?
No.
No, that's from a liquid to a gas. Is it called condensation?
No.
No, that's from a gas to a liquid. Is it called procrastination? No, I'll tell you what that means tomorrow. When a solid turns into a gas, it's called sublimation. Right here, I have one of my oldest pieces of equipment. It's called a film canister. I'm going to put a piece of dry ice in this film canister, and it will start to sublimate or turn from a solid into a
Gas.
gas. Even though we can't see it, matter is gas. A matter is anything that takes up space. Now, what takes up more space? A solid or a gas?
A gas.
A gas. A gas will expand and take up much of space as it can. Now, when I put the dry ice in the film canister and put the lid on top, what do you think is going to happen? It's time to do our scientific guess, which is also called a hypothesis.
All right, I guess it's time for us to make our first hypothesis, everyone. All right, so our first hypothesis is, how long do you guys think it's going to take for that little film canister to explode after he puts the dry ice in it and puts the lid on top? Do you think it'll take about 10 seconds, about 30 seconds, or more than a minute? Oh, okay, we have some votes in. Oh, it's kind of split a little bit. Ooh, okay. All right, last minute votes, last minute. Okay, whoa, we just got a bunch in. All right, so this is our votes. We're kind of all divided. So about a third of us think 10 seconds, a third think 30 seconds, and about a third think a minute. So let's go test our theory, everyone.
Okay, all right. Now let's see what happens. Oh, look at that, it's sublimated.
So cool.
Wow. Isn't that awesome? I love it. All right, now I'm gonna put the lid on top. Now, oh my God!
Oh, that's so awesome.
Wow! That was awesome!
Yeah.
Whoa! Whoa!
It took like 1 second.
Wow! That was amazing! When we put the lid on top, we trapped the gas inside. The gas kept expanding, trying to find space, which in turn built up pressure inside of the film canister, which made it pop up into the air. And that's what it looked like when Henry and Beth saw something flying over their heads.
They didn't see what flew overhead, but Beth had an idea. Maybe that was the Evil Ice Sorceress. But Henry laughed. That's just an old story people tell to scare their kids. She's not real.
Now what would you do? A, would you run home? Or B, would you follow it into the forest?
I think I would follow it into the forest. That sounds pretty cool.
Come on, let's go see what it was. Henry grabbed Beth by the arm and together they ran towards the forest. Meanwhile, high atop the castle tower, someone was watching them. It's those two pesky kids. They're heading into the forest. I'll stop them. The guard raced down the long hall, jumped onto his horse, and rode to the edge of the forest. Right there, far in the distance, running through the trees, he spotted Henry and Beth. The guard started to chase them. Henry and Beth started to run. They were fast, but the guard's horse was faster.
Henry and Beth need our help. Put your hands up and be like the trees in the forest.
He got closer and closer. The hoofbeats got louder and louder. He rode alongside them. Just as he reached out, about to grab them, they dove off the path and disappeared from sight. He looked right. Then he looked left. The guard saw something. But it wasn't Henry and Beth. It wasn't a person at all. It was a mysterious white cloud of fog. He felt very cold. Something wasn't right. He turned and rode off in the other direction. It was filling the entire forest. Henry and Beth peeked out from behind the old tree they were hiding behind. The guard was gone.
Wait a minute! Wait a minute! In the story, Henry and Beth saw something in the forest. It was the mysterious white cloud of fog. That's right. We're going to do an experiment to show you what that looked like. Do you remember what it's called when a solid turns into a gas?
Sublimation.
Sublimation. Right here, I have a graduated cylinder filled with water. I'm going to add dry ice to that water. What do you think is going to happen? It's time to make our scientific guess, also called a hypothesis.
All right, everyone, it's time for our second hypothesis. All right, get ready to make your scientific guess. So, he has that big graduated cylinder that has water in it, and when he puts dry ice in it, how big do you think that the cloud of fog will get? Do you think it'll fill the tube about halfway, or all the way to the top, or do you think it'll go over the top? Ooh, we've got some good votes in so far. All right. We all think it's going to go over the top, which would be awesome. I hope that happens. Well, let's go back to Science Rick and find out what happens.
All right. It's time to test out our theory. Let's see what happens. When we put the dry ice into water, the water makes the dry ice heat up and sublimate even faster. That allows us to see all the gas, just like a fog or a cloud. That's right. We can actually, pour it in our hands. Look at that.
So awesome.
We can even pour it in our lab coats.
That must be crazy.
I can even pour it on you.
That's so cool.
And this is what it looked like when Henry and Beth saw the mysterious white fog.
The guard was gone, but that's when they saw it. Right there, the fog. It was coming towards them.
What would you do? Would you A, stay in the foggy forest? Or would you B, warn the king?
Fog is pretty cool, but I guess we should probably warn.
Quickly, Henry and Beth ran back towards the castle to warn the king. Henry and Beth ran fast as they could. They saw the castle in the distance. Finally, they made it out of the forest. But they were too late. Right there, standing in front of the castle, they saw her. It was the Evil Ice Sorceress. Suddenly, the trumpets blared. The castle gates blew open. And the knights marched out. But nobody could have known what was going to happen next. The Evil Ice Sorceress stomped her feet. She clapped her hands. She snapped her fingers. With a wave of the hand and flick of the wrist, she released bubbles of fog that rained down from the sky. When the bubbles popped, they released ice-cold fog that froze the night solid.
Wait a minute! In the story, the Evil Ice Sorceress stomps her feet. She claps her hands and she snaps her fingers, that's right. When she does, she makes bubbles of fog. We're going to do an experiment to show you exactly what that looked like. Right here, I have a flask. In my flask is water. Now we're going to add a chemical to this water. Soap! We're going to add a piece of dry ice to the soapy-filled water. What do you think is going to happen? It's time for our scientific guess, also known as a hypothesis.
All right. It's Dominique again, and it looks like it's time to make our next hypothesis, everyone. All right, so this hypothesis is going to be about one of my favorite things, bubbles. So, how many bubbles do you guys think there's going to be when he puts that dry ice in that soapy-filled water? Do you think there will be a lot of tiny bubbles or one big bubble? Ooh, okay. Awesome. We have lots of different votes, okay? All right. Oh, this is so fun. All right, it looks like a majority of us think a lot of tiny bubbles. Some of us think one big bubble. Well, let's go back to the lab and see what Science Rick finds out.
All right. Are you ready? Here we go. There's the soap. All right. Now it's time to add the dry ice. Here we go. Whoa! Oh my gosh! Look at that!
So awesome! Do you guys see all those bubbles?
Oh, you can see the fog inside of the bubbles.
That is so cool!
The dry ice supplemented. It turned from a solid into a gas. The gas is filling up the soap. And that's why we're getting so many bubbles. Lots and lots of bubbles. This is really cool.
Yeah.
When the bubbles pop, you can see the fog inside of an escape. It's really cool. And this is what it looked like when the Evil Ice Sorceress made bubbles of fog.
But it wasn't the knights that she wanted. Right there, she found who she was looking for. Slowly, she walked towards the king. She stomped her feet. She clapped her hands. She snapped her fingers. And with a wave of the hand and flick of the wrist, she released a giant bubble of fog. The bubble popped, releasing an ice-cold fog that froze the king solid. Then, ever so slowly, the Evil Ice Sorceress turned around and looked out into the distance. With a flash of her icy blue eyes, she caught Henry and Beth watching her. They started to run. They arrived at a sign with two locations, Fiery Mountains or Frozen Swamp.
What would you do? Would you A, run to the Fiery Mountains, or would you B, head to the Frozen Swamp?
Both of those sound kind of scary.
Henry and Beth reached the base of the Fiery Mountains. There, it was said, the dragons lived. A dragon was Henry and Beth's only hope to stop the Evil Ice Sorceress. They climbed up, up, and up, the narrow rocky path winding their way higher and higher into the mountains. With every step they took, they felt the ground getting warmer beneath their feet. As they got closer, they saw it was the opening to a cave.
What would you do? Would you A, keep climbing, or B, go into the cave?
Guess we can check the cave.
With whatever courage they had left, Henry and Beth stepped inside of the cave. At once they heard a deafening roar. They looked up. They couldn't believe their eyes. They were standing face to face with a dragon. Two children in my mountain cave. What are you doing here?
Okay, everybody, Henry and Beth needs our help again, okay? On 3, yell, the Evil Ice Sorceress is back, okay? You ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Evil Ice Sorceress is back!
My fire should be able to melt her. The dragon flew up in the air. Henry and Beth felt the powerful wind in their face and hair.
Wait a minute! In the story, Henry and Beth flew through the air with the dragon. That's right. While they were flying through the air, they felt how strong the wind was. We're going to do an experiment to show you what that was like. Now, what's all around us that we need to breathe? Air. Now, is air a solid, a liquid, or a gas?
Gas.
That's right. Air is made out of tiny little particles, too small for us to see. But if we can't see it, how do we know it exists? Because we can feel it. We can also see the effects that it has on other objects. Right here, I have a leaf blower. The leaf blower sucks air through this end and shoots it out at 140 miles an hour.
That's so awesome! You see his hair, it's a mess! That's so awesome!
Oh my goodness, that was amazing! I wonder if I can find something else in the lab to use it on.
Toilet paper?
Let's try the leaf blower with this toilet paper. What do you think is going to happen? It's time for us to make our scientific guess, also called a hypothesis.
All right, it's time for our next hypothesis, everyone. Get ready. All right, this hypothesis is going to be about toilet paper. So, what do you guys think is going to happen when he turns on that leaf blower towards that toilet paper? Do you think that it'll go flying through the air? Do you think the toilet paper will fall to the ground? Or do you think it will unravel? Ooh, okay. All right. We have lots of votes already coming in. Ooh, okay. All right, awesome. So it looks like most of us think that it's going to unravel. Some of us also think it'll fly through the air. My hypothesis is that it'll do both. Let's go test our theory.
All right, now it's time to test out our theory.
This is so awesome! It's gonna make a mess!
Fast-moving air has lots of energy.
When the energy comes into contact with another object, like the toilet paper, it makes the toilet paper fly through the air. And that's what it looked like when Henry and Beth flew through the air with the dragon.
Flying through the air, the dragon saw the entire kingdom below. The castle was completely frozen in ice. Right there stood the Evil Ice Sorceress. She was watching. The dragon landed in front of the castle and put Henry and Beth down.
I'll be right back.
The dragon took a deep breath and released a blast of fire.
Not even fire can melt me.
She stomped her feet. She clapped her hands. She snapped her fingers. And with a wave of the hand and flick of the wrist, she released bubbles of fog that rained down on Henry and Beth. Just when they thought all hope was lost, Henry and Beth heard a sound. The dragon spread its wings wide apart and covered Henry and Beth like a giant umbrella. The bubbles popped, releasing their ice-cold fog that froze the dragon solid. Then the Evil Ice Sorceress rose up into the air and started flying towards them.
What would you do? Would you A, face the evil sorceress? Or would you B, find a place to hide?
Hi, she's way too scary.
Henry and Beth started to run. Henry and Beth saw an open window in the castle. They jumped inside. Down, down, down to the cold castle cellar. Everything in the cellar was completely frozen in ice, except for one thing: an old wooden barrel.
They opened the barrel. It was filled with salt. As they climbed inside the barrel, some salt spilled out onto the ground, and it started to melt the ice. Just then, someone kicked the door in.
I can see you come out of that barrel.
She stomped her feet. She clapped her hands. She snapped her fingers. The Evil Ice Sorceress started to wave her hand.
But before the Evil Ice Sorceress could flick her wrist, Henry and Beth had an idea. They reached their hands inside of the barrel, grabbed a handful of salt, and on 3, 1, 2, 3, they threw it at her.
All at once, the salt began to work. The Evil Ice Sorceress broke out in a cold sweat, and she watched as the salt melted through her icy skin. With one final shriek, the Evil Ice Sorceress exploded into millions of tiny water droplets that fell like rain. And just like that, the Evil Ice Sorceress was gone. This time, for good.
Wait a minute! Wait a minute! In this story, Henry and Beth melted the Evil Ice Sorceress with salt. She exploded into millions of ice droplets. We're going to do an experiment to show you what that looked like. Okay, everyone, do like this. Okay, do it again. We breathe out CO2, or carbon dioxide. That's the same thing that dry ice is made out of. Dry ice is just the solid form of carbon dioxide. Inside this cartridge is carbon dioxide gas. When we open up this end, carbon dioxide escapes very, very fast. I'm going to attach it to this tube. And what's inside of this tube? Nothing right now. We're going to put water inside of the tube. We're going to pull this lever and release the carbon dioxide gas. Now, what do you think is going to happen? It's time for our scientific guess, also called a hypothesis.
All right. It's time for our next hypothesis, everyone. And this one is going to be about what you guys think will happen to that water in the tube. So, after he puts water in that tube and releases that carbon dioxide gas, what do you guys think is going to happen to that water? Do you think the water will evaporate and turn into a gas? Do you think the water will get soaking wet? Or do you think the water will freeze? Ooh, okay. Somebody thinks Rick is gonna get soaking wet. That would be hilarious. All right. Few more votes. All right. All right, most of us think it's going to freeze. All right, that is a great hypothesis. Well, let's go test out our theory in the lab, everyone.
Okay, well, let's see what's going to happen. Now, let's count down from 10. Are you ready? Let's do it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh!
Awesome.
Oh my gosh!
Guys, Rick is soaking wet. That's so funny.
Oops. And that's what it looked like when the Evil Ice Sorceress exploded into thousands of little tiny droplets of water.
Henry and Beth got right to work. They dragged the barrel outside the castle, lifted it high over their heads, and dumped salt all over the dragon. All they could do now was wait. And wait. And the salt began to melt the ice. The dragon started to move. It flapped its giant wings and flew into the air. Flying over the kingdom, the dragon saw everything still covered in ice. It took a deep breath and released a blast of fire. As the ice melted and the kingdom thawed out, a huge cloud of fog formed over the land.
Wait a minute! At the end of the story, the dragon took a deep breath and let out a blast of fire. That's right. The fire melted all the ice and left a big cloud of fog. This is an experiment to show you what that looked like. Right here, I have a bucket filled with hot water. Right here, I have dry ice. What do you think is going to happen when I put the dry ice inside of the bucket of hot water? It's time to make our scientific guess, also called a I almost said the word hypothesis. Oh!
It's time to make our next hypothesis, everyone. All right, get ready. This hypothesis is about fog. So when he dumps that dry ice into that big bucket of hot water, how much fog do you guys think there's going to be? Do you think there'll be a little bit of fog or a lot of fog? or way too much fog? Oh, okay. All right, lots of votes are coming in. All right. Oh, another vote, another vote. Okay. So this is what we think, everyone. We either think way too much fog or we think a lot of fog. Well, either way, it's gonna look awesome. So let's go see what Science Rick finds out.
Wow! Okay, are you guys ready? I need your help counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Wow,
Whoa!
that is so awesome.
The ice is sublimating very fast because it's in hot water.
That's so cool.
This is awesome! Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
This is super cool! It's sublimating at such a high rate. And that's exactly what it looked like when the kingdom started to thaw out again.
The dragon waved goodbye to Henry and Beth and headed back to her home in the mountains. Everything returned to normal.
Suddenly, someone called for Henry and Beth. It was the king. Then they remembered that they were in trouble for sneaking around the castle. The king called for them again. This time, there was nowhere to hide.
Henry, Beth, I've been looking everywhere for you. Because of what you did, our kingdom is safe. All hail Henry and Beth, and your dragon friend too. And from now on, you are allowed to sneak around the castle whenever you'd like.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And that concludes Dragons, Return of the Ice Sorceress. Did you have a good time?
That was so awesome. All right, everyone. Wow, that was such an awesome show. Did you guys like it? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? All right. Lots of thumbs up. All right. So, in the next part of the show, we're going to see how much you guys remember. So, Science Rick used a lot of experiments with dry ice. So, our first question is going to be, what is dry ice? So this will work just like the hypotheses. It'll come up and you pick your option. Do you guys think that it's solid carbon monoxide or dioxide or trioxide? Okay. All right. It's looking good, looking good. All right. Most of us chose solid carbon dioxide, which is correct. And that is the same chemical that we breathe out. All right, our next question to see how much we remember is, how cold is dry ice? Is it 0 degrees? Is it 32 degrees below zero? Or is it 109 degrees below zero? Okay, all right. It's looking good, looking good. All right, any more votes? Any more votes? All right. All right, so we have a couple of mixed votes, but for a majority, you guys did get that correct. It is 109 degrees below zero. That is why Science Rick had to use special gloves just to touch it. All right, and our final quiz question is, which takes up the most amount of space? Is it a solid, or a liquid, or a gas? All right, we have our votes coming in. All right. It's looking great, guys. All right. All right, and again, most of us did get that correct. It is gas. Gas takes up the most amount of space because it's able to expand. Great job, everyone. You guys remembered so much of what we learned today. Very great job. All right, so in the next part of the show, my favorite part of the show, we get to do an experiment live. So stay tuned for that. We learned a lot about freezing cold temperatures and carbon dioxide, so we are going to do an experiment with that. So in order to do this experiment, you will need some kind of drip tray. You will also need a container with a wide mouth on it. You will need a piece of string. You will need water and ice. And you will need table salt like this. All right, so we're gonna bounce over to the science cam and we're gonna watch this experiment live, everyone. All right, so our first step in this experiment is we're gonna take our ice and dump it in here. Our next step is we're gonna put our water in, just like we're pouring a cup of ice water, just to the top of the ice there. Then we're gonna take our string and try to make contact with as many pieces of the ice as possible. Just like that. And then finally, we're gonna take our salt and pour it right on top of that ice and on top of the string. All right, so while we let that set for just a moment, it is time to make our next hypothesis. All right, so what do you guys think will happen to that ice? Do you think that the ice will sink to the bottom from all that salt? Do you think it'll stick to the string? Or do you think it'll snap the string? All right, lots of hypotheses coming in. Awesome. All right. All right, so this is our hypothesis. Most of us think it will stick to the string. Somebody thinks it's going to snap the string. All right, well, let's go test our theory, everyone. All right, I'm gonna do a countdown from 5. You guys can do it with me, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whoa! You guys were right, it did stick to the string. It's a huge chunk of ice now. That is so awesome. All right. So the reason that this sticks, guys, to the string is because when we put that salt on the ice, the salt starts to melt the ice, just like how it melted the Evil Ice Sorceress in the story. And then the water surrounding the ice starts to refreeze that ice, which also freezes the string. Isn't that awesome? So please try that experiment at home. And when you do try it at home, have your parents post it to social media with the hashtag ScienceTellers, and your pictures and videos will be put up on social media along with people from all over the country, kids doing the same experiments as you guys. So it just requires a few simple ingredients, and we would love to see you guys test out your experiments. So try different types of string. Kitchen twine is really great. I use just regular yarn. As long as it has multiple strands on it, it will work just fine because it'll stick to the ice a lot better. Other than that, now it's time for anybody to ask any questions that you might have, either about the experiment I just did, the experiments during the show, or your favorite parts of the show. I would love to hear your feedback. So you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask me any questions, everyone. Did you guys like the show? Thumbs up? Yeah, all right. And this cool experiment, so you guys will be able to do at home. All right, lots of thumbs up.
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Miss Karen. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. This was so much fun. What'd you guys think? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, lots of thumbs up.
All right, wonderful. Well, I hope you guys are all enjoying summer reading. I know it's super weird this year, but we are making the best of it, and we're really excited that we're able to have great programs like this. So thank you very much, Science Tellers.
All right. Yes, thank you guys so much for having Science Tellers today. Thank you, Livonia Civic Center Library, for having Science Tellers and for having us perform with you guys today. Like she said, check out the summer reading program. I know that it's different, but support your libraries. Check out all those books about science or whatever else you love to read about. And remember to post your experiments with hashtag Science Tellers so we can see you guys do those cool ice experiments, all right? All right, well, thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your show. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you guys so much for tuning in at the show today. You can go ahead and pause the recording and stop it, and it'll start making that sound file for you. Yeah, thank you for the round of applause, everyone. That's so sweet. Your little emojis.